Welcome to the Raise Your Energy podcast. My name is Linda Lange and I'm your host and energy expert. I'm sharing with you today my own roller coaster journey with change. It's my job to teach people how to change, so it might be a good idea for me to share more about my experience with change and how my changes have developed over the last few years. I've started my journey with change exactly where you might be right now, wondering why the heck it's just not working and why change is just so freaking hard. So let me share with you my story and the insights I thankfully received, so I finally understood how change actually works. So you can do it too. Stay tuned. Before my burnout, I always loved change. I loved changing my jobs, I loved changing my hobbies, I loved changing countries. I moved a lot. I loved and welcomed change quite a lot. And I was always happy to change something in my life, or even if change happened to me, I wasn't too bothered about it, so to say. But like most of us, I always understood change to happen on the outside. It had to be made on the outside in that 3D world that we are living in. That's where I always understood all the change could just happen, so to say. So if I'm not happy with something, if I want something to be different, then I had to make that change in my environment, so to say. If I didn't like my job anymore, then just change it, change the job. That's what I did a lot, and I have a CV to prove it. But I just did not know that I was trying to kind of fill a hole inside of me, a feeling that just didn't feel very good inside of me by changing, for example, my job every 12 to 18 months. And I just did not know that if I wanted to make that feeling go away or have a different feeling inside of me, then I had to make the change as well inside of me and not just on the outside. I just did not know that back then. And you might be feeling exactly the same and nodding along with me here. So like me, you might make already a lot of changes in your life, trying to be happier, more content, and enjoy your life more. And you're wondering why it just not be working. And that was exactly me. I just did not know that that would just not fix the feeling inside of me, or at a minimum, not long term. The thing is that we can make as many changes as we want on the outside, but if we don't make any changes on our inside along with it, or even more than the changes on the outside, we will always end up in the same place as we were before. We always feel at some point exactly how we felt before we made that change in our environment. So when I would change jobs or even employer in my past, I always ended up at the same place at some point. Of course, at the beginning, the excitement of a new company, a new job was very exciting. It was a good feeling. It was new, right? And that was what kind of filled me up for a while and made me ignore better that feeling inside of me that I wanted to fix. But after 6 to 12 months, that feeling always came back. And I realized quicker and quicker every time I changed jobs or companies that just didn't work anymore. It just didn't make that feeling or that gap inside of me go away. And then 2.5 years ago, when I accepted that I was burnt out and I actually took some time off, I made something quite consciously for the first time that finally changed my approach to change, so to say. I made this impactful decision not to go back to work in the same place I was feeling when I left and took some time away. And I remember looking back at it now that was a determining decision that I made. It had a huge energy behind it. So my subconscious actually took it seriously, probably for the first time. And I remember that was the moment where something huge shifted inside of me, just by me making that determining decision to change something inside of me and not outside of me. And that's when a huge shift started to happen in my life straight away. And I did not make consciously any more decisions on the outside. Yes, did I put myself into a situation where that shift was working? Yes, of course. But I did not do it consciously. I didn't know what would help me. It was kind of like I was guided. I just had to make that determining decision inside of me to change. And suddenly the answers like magic came to me and flew kind of through me and helped me to change and guided me in some kind of way. I know now that one of the biggest shifts or things that I would do differently at that moment in time was that impactful decision that I made, that it had such a huge shift of energy inside of me that my subconscious took it seriously and actually listened and said, oh, now she's actually serious about changing. And then my subconscious actually started to kind of help me with that change. Now I know how important that decision is that we make when we want to change. How many times have you made a decision to change, but it wasn't really that impactful, and maybe the next day you went back on your decision? I have made that kind of change before many, many times in my life, especially when it comes around losing weight, eating more healthy, stop drinking alcohol, whatever it is. I made that decision so many times, and then it fell through one day, 1 week, or 1 month later. So I know now that there was a huge difference between these decisions that I made in the past and that did not really work, and that decision that I made at that moment in time when I said, I'm not going to go to work and do the same mistakes again and burn out again in a year's time. It was just so impactful. So I think that is one of the big and huge learnings I fully understand now and use as well now to actually make huge shifts and changes in my life. So I know now that that is one of the huge ingredients that is necessary for our subconscious to actually listen and get on board with that change and actually then help us to go through it instead of self-sabotaging ourselves in a way. So one of the biggest lessons is that determining decision that I made back then and that I use now in my ongoing journey with change. So that's when I was ready to go back to work, and I started to implement a lot of the insights that I suddenly saw or understood or received, and a lot of the learnings that I put myself into to finally change, not on the outside, on the inside. So I started to implement all of that. That is another important ingredient, is for us to implement and apply all of the insights, messages, or learnings that we receive in whatever way they come into our lives. The importance is to actually do something with it, put it into practice and apply it into our lives. So that's what I started doing straight away when I went back to work. And I started to see changes happening in my environment just by me changing on the inside. I realized that I did not have to do really that many changes on the outside anymore, but rather focus on my inside. So I kind of played even around with it. I made it kind of a game. It was a trial and error game, and some of it maybe didn't really work. I don't even remember really. But I just mostly remember the ones that actually worked, and then suddenly observing my environment changing like magic just by me shifting my energy, concentrating on even protecting my energy and just being more centered inside of myself. And then, of course, changing my beliefs, changing my perspectives, and just being able to suddenly observe what happens if I just am a different person in the same kind of situations that I was in before. So from then on, I started, of course, practicing more my changes on the inside and lesser on the outside. And I can say that I have so many little and bigger examples of synchronicities and serendipities and just what other people might call fate or meant to be that suddenly started happening to me because I started to become a different person. I changed parts of my personality to achieve what I wanted to achieve or to become the person that I actually wanted to become. So obviously, because I realized and I started to see the results coming out of it, I made this now a daily practice. And this is now where I am today. I make this now a daily practice. And the changes that happened, let's say 1 or 2 years ago to me, are now feeling quite small. They are really tiny in comparison to the changes I'm making now. But back then, these were huge changes to me. After working myself into a burnout for plus 10 years and always trying to make shifts on the outside, but nothing actually ever worked. So the changes I experienced 1 or 2 years ago were huge for me. The results and the changes that had started happening by magic on my outside, in my environment, were just mind-blowing for me. And now, 1, 2 years later, I can say that I'm working on much bigger changes now. And I can tell you that probably when I'm here again in a year's time and talk to you about my journey with changes, it's probably still going to be a roller coaster. But I can probably say already now that the changes I'm making now will feel small against the changes I'm making in a year's time. I can already see that happening. And if I'm really honest with you guys, is it easier for me to change now? Yes and no. It is easier for me to start a change and to follow through and to be really focused on that change because I know now how to actually do it. But is it easier in general? No, it's actually harder. But because I'm stronger and more capable in the area of change, it kind of is easier in that respect again. But the changes I'm making now are just so much bigger than changes I've ever done in my life before. But I practiced, right? I know now exactly how to change, and I get better at it every time I do it. So what happens is that my subconscious allows me now to make bigger changes because I built up my change muscles, so to say. I obviously train and teach my clients on how to change. And that already gives me, every time I go through the training with people, I understand even more, and I even advance my knowledge in change. Even through the examples that my clients are going through, it helps me, again, making even bigger and more drastic changes in my life. So for me, at this moment in time, the version that I am currently speaking to you, I have two main ingredients that I use in my daily change practices. And the first one is that it is instrumental for you to know where you're changing towards. You need to have a vision of that change that you want to have happen in your life. It is so important for you to fully understand the life that you actually want to live, or the person that you actually want to be living that life of your dreams. So it is so important. And why is it important? Because you need to be that person that is in your future that you want to become. You need to be that person now. For you to be that person already now in your life, even if your life hasn't changed, you need to fully understand how that person thinks, how that person acts and behaves, and how that person feels inside of them. And that is so powerful currently in my practice, and for me to actually study my future self every single day in my journaling and meditation practice. So that is the main ingredient number one for me at this moment, to really have that vision of the person that I want to become. And the second practice that I keep doing on and on and on is asking myself one to two powerful questions. Every time I want to make a change and that change hasn't happened, maybe I already kind of wish that it happened. I tried things out. I took actions towards it, but it just hasn't happened yet. Instead of me going, why hasn't it happened yet? Because again, think about the first main ingredient that I said. My future self, who has already achieved it, would never ask the question, why hasn't it happened yet? Because it already has happened. I know, a little bit meta here. But the questions that I asked myself instead is, what else do I need to change about myself to become that person? And what else do I need to let go of to be that person now? These are the two questions that I keep asking myself every time I might have that feeling of, it still hasn't happened, or why, what is missing? I ask myself these questions. I go back into trusting the universe and letting go of these old ways of thinking. And I ask myself the question, what else do I need to let go of? What kind of other limiting beliefs and programs do I have sitting in my subconscious mind that are stopping me from fully being that person and living that life? And then what else do I need to change about myself? What else is my future self doing that I'm still not doing? So these are my two main ingredients at this moment in time that I keep practicing on a daily basis. So I hope that helped you a little bit. This is in essence my roller coaster journey with change. You know, just because I teach this and actually help my clients changing their lives to the way that they love their lives and that they're happy and that they feel good, it just doesn't mean that I'm all done with change. Actually, it's anything but that. It's actually more and more that I want to change in my life, but I just feel more confident in doing it because I know now how it works. I've started seeing the amazing results that you can achieve once you actually know exactly how to change and you have the right tools. And because I am doing that work every single day, I become more familiar with it. It's more natural to me now. It becomes more automatic with everything that we do and practice on a regular basis, right? And this journey of change is really a journey of overcoming yourself, because the overcoming yourself is the becoming process, as Dr. Joe Dispenza always says. Overcoming yourself constantly on a daily basis, on a regular basis, means that you are becoming more and more the person that you actually want to be. So I hope that was quite eye-opening for you. I hope I shared more about my own journey and that has inspired you to take more steps on your change journey. And leave me a comment to let me know if this has touched you, if this has inspired you, because then I am happy to talk more about this, because that is my passion. That's what I'm doing. So with that, I leave you and love you, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much, and bye-bye.